Marks 17 years since the deadly 9/11 terrorist attacks. 10 News reporter Leslie Ackerson is here with how East Tennessee will honor the heroes who lost their lives that day.
Good afternoon, Heather. There's so many ways you can take time to reflect on that day and remember those lives lost. At the Alcatraz Museum in Pigeon Forge, visitors can check out a display of items from that day. And on Sunday, native Arbohannon shared his firsthand experiences working forensics at the World Trade Center. His ID badge, hard hat, and respirator mask are part of that exhibit. And their hope is that it can be used as a learning tool.
And we have several people that were not alive at that point. So it's something that shows the younger generation of what has happened in the past and to be more aware of things going into the future.
And tomorrow morning, Knoxville volunteers will take on the Memorial Stair Climb. 343 first responders from firefighters to EMS, police, military, and others will climb the equivalent of 110 stories in remembrance of the 343 firefighters who died at the Twin Towers. They plan to gear up and replicate that experience of those firefighters on that day. They will also be wearing a badge bearing the name and photograph of the fallen, and the public is welcome to come watch and show their support. And finally, tomorrow morning, the bells of First Baptist Church will toll at exactly 8:46 and 9:03 to mark when the planes crashed into the World Trade Center. A wreath will be laid at the base of the 9/11 memorial in downtown Knoxville. We have more information on all of these events online. Heather.
Thank you.